What's going on, Alamo City Movie Talk fans? As always, I'm your host, Ryan D, aka Ryan680.
I'm Angela, Kelly Ange.
And this is Alamo City Movie Talk, guys. Thank you so much for making this a party today. You know what to do, guys. Like, share, subscribe, and thank you for tuning into this review. Let's get right to it. What are we talking about today, Angela?
Today we are reviewing the 2024 version of this movie, Salem's Lot.
Salem's Lot actually was this is an official remake. The last one came out in the 70s. I don't know if you saw it. I don't think so. Man, I'm trying to remember. I recognize the costume of the original. I recognize the makeup. I recognize the creature itself. So maybe I've seen it, but maybe I saw it like at 12 or 13. I was seeing a lot of VHS movies around that time. So it's just, that's when I discovered Night Before Christmas. That's when I discovered a Nightmare on Elm Street. That's where I discovered The Thing, Friday the 13th movie. So I saw a lot of movies around that time period where it was just nonstop go. And there's so many Friday the 13th movies if you quizzed me on it, I probably wouldn't even told you. But anyways, so I was very, very, very interested to see they're revamping it, kind of like not a reboot, but one of the things that I'm kind of upset about is first thing is this movie is too damn good to be a Max movie, straight to Max. This movie, I gotta say this right off the bat. Salem's Lot tells of a story, and let's get right to it. So Salem's Lot tells of a story where Arthur Ben Mears returns to his childhood home of Jerusalem's Lot in search of inspiration for his next book, only to discover his hometown is being preyed upon a bloodthirsty vampire. And one of the things I did take away from this film and everything, this film is very entertaining. Let's say this, okay? This film is very entertaining. I was pleasantly surprised, shockingly surprised how great of a movie this really is. A lot of horror elements, a lot of horror scenes where like it wasn't just jump scares. And I know you always like put your put your hand on your ear because you don't like to hear the noise. It's more like
it gets a little too loud for my liking.
Yeah, but what do you think of this?
So I thought it was really good. I haven't read. I think this was based on one of Stephen King's.
Yes,
novels.
This is a Stephen King.
I haven't read this one. I've only read like 2 books of his, and so I was like, all right, let's see, right? Because he's notoriously doesn't like film
his own
adaptations.
Movies.
Yeah,
but he did tweet about this. We saw before watching this movie, he actually did tweet about like this is really good movie and everything, and so he's not wrong.
Like, okay, all right. Mr. King. All right. But going in, it was surprisingly pretty entertaining. I really, really liked a lot of the effects, like especially with like the vampires and, some of the practical effects. Like it was really cool, like how the crosses glowed and like basically when the cross is being like held against the vampire, like the effects of like them being essentially shoved and pushed away. That was really cool.
Really good,
Some of like I said, the effects and the little details like that really made this for me, like, and the gore, if you will, and even the head monster, I forgot what they called him, the head vampire that started it all, that makeup was very cool, very scary. And it wasn't like over complicated, it just looked really creepy and really I don't know, it was kind of like very simple but very effective. And so again, I liked the makeup, I liked the effects, I liked all that. The cast was, oh my god, great. There's a lot of familiar faces that I saw. But overall the cast was so great. I thought it was such a great, entertaining film overall, and I really enjoyed it for because I think it was like like an hour and a half, or was it 2 hours?
It's about an hour and 53 minutes.
Okay, so almost 2 hours.
I
didn't feel a drag at all for one bit.
Agree.
It had a good pace. It had a pretty good storyline that was easy to follow, some of the point. I thought it was, one thing I will say, I thought it was really, really funny and different that I haven't seen in a while. Where a lot of the characters kind of like figured out what was going on right away and went with it. Like, because usually with a lot of scary movies and like they deal with like folklore, folktale, there's a lot of skepticism. No one wants to believe it.
I feel like that this because it was almost like it was set in the 70s, and during that time period, again, we go back to where like it was definitely horror. It goes back to the 70s of this was our 70s, like us if we were in the 70s, and I got that aspect of it. I got that inspiration of it. And of course during that time period was Wolfman, was all these Dracula movies, all these Universal films that were coming out. So
I thought it was just really funny how that played out.
But it makes sense though, like if it was our current events sort of deal, it makes sense. I love that. I really did. I loved a lot of those moments. One of the other, I feel like with horror right now, it's very interesting how everything's changed, right? Same thing. We go back to let me give you an example, guys. Let me give one of the things that's happening right now, and I'm wearing it too. Not right now, but when I do go out, sometimes vintage stuff is come back. When it comes down to like clothes, a lot of the old graphic T-shirts are revamping it. They're making it all these oversized shirts and everything. And vintage, and it works.
And vintage stores are coming back.
Horror movies, correct me if I'm wrong, but horror movies and scary movies are vintage. They're making more vintage stuff that are just going back to the basics that really, really inspire the essence of what scary movies were back in those days. Mm-hmm. Because everything's over CGI'd. Everything's over CGI'd. Not this movie, but everything's over CGI'd. I think there's CGI like one or two scenes, and
obviously they had to like the flying. They had to.
Well, yeah, obviously, but it's just it's more so of like it was very minimum, and I feel like that the filmmaker really wanted to really captivate and really capture audiences back to those eras. Like we got X, we got Pearl. There's no CGI in there. And it's very revealing and it's very inspirational and it's very great to see that because it just proves you don't need to have this monstrosity of CGI to make a great movie. We go back to where the great Christopher Nolan himself made Oppenheimer, which is one of the top films ever, was my number one last year. Minimum I don't even think there was any. I have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was no CGI in that movie alone. And it was all about camera work, a lot of work was put into it by the director and everything. And speaking of directors here, this is directed by Gary Duberman, who's actually has always not been around per se. He's been in Annabelle Comes Home. He's done screenplay for it, screenplay for The Nun 2. He's done screenplay for It Chapter 2, Swamp Thing. He's very, very well known in the horror industry. So knowing that this is his first directorial debut of making a film, this is awesome, man. I love this. Someone who actually, granted though, I don't like The Nun. I think The Nun 2 was a little bit better. I don't like it. Just there's wins and there's losses. But I feel like at the same time though, when you have your losses, I feel like that there's nothing wrong with learning from your losses, right? There's nothing. So but then when you talk about Annabelle Comes Home, which is such a great, one of the best Annabelle movies, I would think, of the franchise. And, it goes back to where like, holy smokes, he actually helped. He was one of the key essence to the story as well. So I'm excited to see what else he's going to really unfold here and everything. But this movie should have been in theaters. I don't know why. Agree, yeah. I have no idea why Max Discovery really did not want to push this out in theaters. This should have been in theaters. I think this movie should have came out in October and it would have dominated. And I think I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think this movie would have dominated in the box office, right?
I think it would have because I mean, we have a lot of interesting movies coming out right now. It also depends on when it would come out. Because right now we have that Halle Berry movie that just came out that's also kind of in the same thriller, not necessarily horror, but kind of peeking in there vibe. I think it would have done very well in theaters. Honestly, I think it's such a very entertaining movie. It's not too scary, but it has some moments. And I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy this film. Again, like the effects were cool, the cast was great, the story was pretty solid. It had a really good flow. So I think it's a pretty well-rounded film. Right? Yeah, it's really solid.
All right, what do you give this rating? Rating 1 out of 10. Tell me the highs. What do you give this rating, Angela?
Personally, I would give it a 7.5 because I really enjoyed it. I think it was a really good scary movie, and I could see myself watching it again and again. Yeah. And I really enjoyed it. I really did. I'm gonna do a little bit. I'm gonna do 7.8, almost an 8. There's a lot of moments in here that I really did love. It was so entertaining. It was so good, so revealing, and I love it. I miss when horror movies made me feel this way. I really do. They haven't made me feel this way since I was a teenager. And I feel like that a lot of moments in here where like it gets me kind of creeped out.
Hereditary, Midsummer. So A24 pretty much knows how to make people scared or freaked out, or Talk to Me was one of the best ones that really tripped me up last year as well. Yeah. So it's definitely one of those movies where like it's very creepy. I love vampire movies. I fucking love vampire movies. Vampire movies are so great. I love them. I'm a sucker for them. It's my guilty pleasure. And Interview with the Vampire. Okay, Interview with the Vampire. The movie is good. And I'll give you. I know everyone's gonna talk shit. Underworld is good as well. Pretty good. I think they're okay. They got a little shitty after. But one of my other guilty pleasures, it's not that great, but I still enjoy it, is Van Helsing with Hugh Jackman.
I thought you were going to say Twilight.
Oh, Twilight, boy. No, not Twilight. No, oh, God, no. Not Twilight. You do watch them. You have I do watch them, but yeah, I don't know.
I will say, though, if we're going to give a shout out to this cast, Jordan Preston Carter, who played Mark, the little kid who like basically tagged along with the main character, Ben Mears.
Yes.
He was so cool. He was like
he stood out so much. Man, he stood out so
like
much.
The best. He was so great, and like he knew his stuff. He like went in there, no fear, kicked butt. He was great. I gotta give that actor a shout out.
He really carried the film for me along with the other characters, but he really stood out more. He had a really good shining moment in here and everything. You really get to see what it does to him on a personal level. When a vampire goes into a small town and everything, and you have to really unsolve some situations that you put yourself that the vampire is putting yourself through. So that was really good. I really did enjoy that, and I enjoyed the makeup too. I enjoyed the creature. I enjoyed all that. I enjoyed the eyes. I enjoyed everything. I really did. I fucking loved it. But all right, guys, thank you so much for making us a part of your day. As always, I'm your host Ryan D. Ryan 680.
I'm Angela at that Cali Ange.
This is Alamo City Movie Talk, guys. Have a good one. You know what to do. Like, share, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. You know you want to, guys. And give us a thumbs up on our review. See you at the movies. Latest.